All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Shinsekai Yori, episode 1. A new show.
Yeah. We are replacing One Out with Shinsekai Yori. This show has been in polls in the earliest time of the channel's history, and now it's time to put it up to the test here. We've really got no info on this show. This might be one of the shortest intros we do for a new show because I have thankfully just not looked into this show at all.
Yeah.
You know, on just the recommendations of so many people that we should watch it.
Mm-hmm. It's
we'll
right up our alley, apparently. Yeah.
Yep. It'll create good discussions. And whenever it comes up in like mal searches and things like that, it's in the more heady kind of recommendations where it's like it's recommended along with a whole bunch of other things where good discussion would be generated.
Cool.
So I'm like, all right, sweet. Yeah,
awesome.
We had One Out, which was more of like a puzzle solving gambling thing, and then this feels like it might be more of like a human puzzle solving.
Right. Philosophical. What does it mean to be alive?
Yeah, stuff like that. So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Wow.
That's a creepy show.
That's a very good start for a very unsettling sci-fi psychic coming
wonderful
of age.
atmosphere.
Yeah, atmosphere 10 out of 10.
It's
holy shit.
It's so immersive, and it does such a wonderful job of setting up that many things are very wrong with this.
Right. We have a lot of world building stuff quickly established to give us the idea that we're going to be focused here. We're going to be focused on these kids.
Yep.
We are not necessarily going to anytime soon get a full picture as to what happened to the old world.
Right.
But this is the new world.
We know enough, the old world was 1,000 years ago. There were psychics. Okay, there's psychics now. There's
legends of stuff that happened 500 years ago with the sacred barriers still being up.
Yep.
And ogres and karmic spirits essentially being a thing. So they're being taught world history at the point where it's for us 500 years ago is the Reformation era.
Right.
Which is so far beyond our family physical memory that no one would actually have any word of mouth stories of those.
There's things that we can talk about from the episode, which I feel like will be fairly limited because the show intentionally is keeping our perspective limited, right?
Right. The main thing is the family.
The main thing is the family and the school. And so okay, you got a new girl who gets to the class, and the reason she's sort of the mysterious transfer student essentially is because she took a while to have her powers awaken, and so okay, cool, right? Yep. And then that's how she doesn't know the situation of what's going on. Oh, why are there a bunch of people from my elementary class that aren't here? What's the deal? I was supposed to be the last one.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a wonderful way that we can have a status quo that isn't then introduced to our main character, and she gets to experience it and try and figure out what's going on. Awesome.
Yeah.
But oh man.
Yeah, there's a couple thematic and I would say tonal things that they've established that are good to kind of keep in mind. There is a very eerily normalized aspect of spiritual interference and or communication.
Okay.
The idea that spirits come and just give blessings, quote unquote, is a thing. But then on the other end, we have this trickster cat, which terrifies the parents. Anything that terrifies the parents in a coming-of-age kids kind of setting
is worth worrying about.
Yeah, because they were all kids at one point.
And they did not fight the power. They're still in the system, in the society and everything. And so,
Yep. So other kind of little elements there is the idea that the ogre, as talked about, was not a literal ogre. That was just a person undergoing some kind of madness or something or other and being designated as an ogre. One of the really cool things about the other aspect of the spiritual side of things was the ritual that was a part of the graduation ceremony.
Yes, that whole scene
Yeah.
was fantastic for showing rather than telling the situation.
Yes.
While still making it so that we don't entirely understand it. So, like, okay, a bunch of old people that are basically doing very strictly curating the abilities and powers of the young people. Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're like guardians of the culture, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly.
This is something that has been going on for so long that it has become tradition and culture.
Yep, and it totally makes sense that you could have something like that, and theoretically it could be something that's very good, right? You know, you've just got the wise old folks that, you know, sort of are like, okay, here's what you do, you know, and all that stuff. Guide you through this process that is so new and strange and maybe, you know, scary and all that stuff, right? But
there were some things about it that were really freaky.
Yeah.
One, personally, was the idea what they were like, we're going to break the cycle of reincarnation, and we're going to have you cast away your powers. But then after that, we're going to give you new powers. And the process in between that, snip, was a aspect of putting their emotions, their worldly desires, and their power into a paper doll, which was then pierced with needles.
And it bled.
But those needles were psychically thrown into key, like, points of there. It bled. They threw it into the fire.
Yep.
I think there is an actual, like, spiritual reincarnation kind of thing, world building that they're setting up here, that they are keeping things from going into some kind of out of balance metric or what have you. Well, the thing gets cast into the fire, and they're like, okay, but now we're gonna put new powers in you. So why did you need to do that then?
Right, like as the episode went on, it was weird because I found my assumptions and the things that I was like, the vibes that I was getting changing pretty dramatically over the course of the episode. Very quickly, right? There's the whole cold open with the psychics and everything that's great, right?
Yeah.
But with the old people, that seems to me like, especially since after 1,000 years, technology hasn't progressed that much, that makes me think that things are being actively suppressed and artificially maintained in a particular state that is desirable to the people in power.
Yeah, it's probably because of the human race needing to survive. You know?
Now, after the previous scene of the psychics killing things and whatnot, this makes a lot of sense. People are scared of the psychics. They don't want psychics to exist. So, you develop some psychic powers. That's okay, honey. We're just going to take those away and then get rid of them.
Right,
but
no.
Then they say, no. We're actually going to give you new powers. I'm like, wait, hold on. Now this feels less like a keep the population safe because we don't think psychics should exist, and more of a we want to curate you and make sure that you do what we want.
Right.
And then that makes me think more that it's less of the we need to keep psychics from appearing, but it's more that maybe the psychics won, and now it's the we need to make sure that we stay dominant or something.
Or just we have the right kind of spirits possessing our kids.
Right, because if some of the psychics just lashed out and were going crazy, it's like, okay, well we want psychic powers, but we don't want that. So, you're going to, which is also a fun way to get at like the idea of individuality in society, because it's whatever your personal psychic abilities are, your personal spirit or whatever, we can't have that. Here's your cookie cutter thing that we present to you. This is who you are. This is what you will, all that stuff, right? Which is just creepy and great, and yet it feels like it has some very nice real world parallels and stuff. So I love it as a story element, right?
Yeah, I love the idea of the kids thus far being taught, I would say, how to enhance their mental capacities via practices. But in terms of all the actual learning that they've done as far as applicable information, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It was folklore. That's it. That's it. Everything else was how to use your powers more effectively.
Right. So all the other stuff makes it seem like it's more of just we want to control what you know. That way you only have our narrative,
Right,
because
exactly.
Also another thing, okay, yes, 500 years ago, folklore, awesome, right?
Yeah.
But why is there no recollection of the stuff that was 1,000 years ago when the schism happened? Maybe because they don't want people to know what happened then.
Well, I think also there's just the possibility that based on their localized territory, maybe, they just don't know that far back.
And also
they could have lost a whole lot of information. I kind of came up with that theory when I was hearing them talk about the animals. That's the kind of thing that would come up with if you forgot over the course of time, like over enough generations of having access to know
like what things were, and then
no
you had
stored information and no, stuff like that, and you relied entirely on word of mouth, certain things would regress if you didn't see them that often. So an example would be they know what a cow is, but they don't know what a silkworm is. So having the big giga silkworm, they called that, I think, the thresh nester or something, or the something like that, a thatch nester or something. But with the cow, they called it a bag cow. And I'm like, okay, that could be some element of over the course of about, 600-700 years or what have you, information's lost.
Right.
Or what have you.
Yeah, you could totally have a situation where the reason things look the way they do now is maybe not necessarily because of repression or whatever, but because over the course of 1,000 years, if there was some apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
Then a lot of it is
just
lost,
scavenged what they could.
Or it goes back to the Dark Ages, and then they manage to get back to a point that's semi-similar to how things were in the modern day.
Yeah,
for us,
you become a foraging and gathering, species again, and then we basically harvest things from the old world to integrate into our new world, and that's why they have technology like the blackboard that just came up right there.
Although that could have totally been psychic powers.
I actually think, now that I think about it, that was not technology.
That was just the teacher having psychic powers. But also
the clothing was definitely advanced, I would say. So,
but the other thing that I think is really interesting here is, okay, so anytime you have a story where it's like, hey, don't go here, right? Okay, so we got to go there at some point.
The courtyard and what's in there.
Yeah, exactly. The beyond the divine barrier or whatever, that door, all of that stuff, right? And I loved the children's story of you mustn't go over there, someone did, and then it almost ruined the civilization and all that stuff, and then they had to sacrifice their life in order to... Okay, that's teaching your kids some fun stuff, but...
Yeah, your life isn't that important compared to
compared to society, and if you break the rules, you will die.
Yeah.
But it'll be a noble, sacrificial, heroic
sacrifice.
Death. Yeah. But...
Classic brainwashing.
I would not be surprised if the noble barrier or whatever it was called, Sacred barrier, is to keep them from going to a place where maybe the remains of civilization would have been, and potentially other civilizations, because ogres on the other side and all that stuff, where people didn't do stuff the way that they do.
Yeah, and it's the classic twist for these kinds of stories is that no, humanity was never wiped out.
Right.
This is just a boarding school.
Yeah.
This is just a very creepy religious culty boarding school. Because it has all the stuff of that. And we, as the audience, are perfectly caught in the middle where we have to take the world building seriously for now.
Yep.
Because we have no other alternatives. The children are being taught the alternatives, so therefore...
Exactly.
We have to just kind of end up getting sucked into the culture, if you will.
Yeah. We don't know the alternatives in the same way that the children have to just accept the world that they're put into because there is no alternative. The alternative is if we don't do well, we might just get disappeared, right? I love how the kids didn't say, like they denied the idea that people disappeared or whatever to our main character because they're just like,
Yeah, so anyway...
Let's talk about something else, right? Because they
how about them Lakers,
Right, exactly. They don't entirely know themselves what's going on. They just know we're doing well. The people who disappeared probably didn't do too well. Like that would probably be the pattern they could tell. So as long as we continue to do well, it's not going to be us. And we can at least manage that.
And we're not competing within our group. We're competing against other groups. So you don't need to get,
Right, you don't need to break the legs of the slowest person or whatever, so you can run away. Yeah.
Right. But someone from their group disappeared. So we'll see how they react to that in the next episode. But hey, great drop in the water of a bigger lake that we don't see the depths underneath the water of, and we don't see where the shore is. There's fog everywhere.
Oh yeah,
this is a very
we're out
very
deep,
cold open. But I love the idea that the spiritualism and the mystical aspects of this world might end up getting blended with the sci-fi at some point because there's some There's some wacky, fun shit that reminds me of some old school sci-fi back in the day, where it was almost synonymous that if a sci-fi narrative went too long into its own world building and narrative, eventually you get spiritual because they can't explain things any further.
Right. Well, and that's why, like, sci-fi, my favorite sci-fi are usually not actually sci-fi. They're fantasy with a sci-fi aesthetic.
Sure.
And I love that combination so much.
This is definitely science fantasy as far as the things goes. And it's mostly just the fact that we're in the future, that it's a sci-fi. So clarify with us that we're not genre experts in anything like that. I'm just using that as shorthand to bring up the idea that, oh, we're going to see tech and potentially world-building stuff that is Earth, but in the future, so we don't understand
exactly
why that is. And the show is going to put on itself the burden of responsibility of telling us or showing us how that stuff works. But all right, there we go. Shinsekai Yori, episode 1.
Oh, man.
Yeah, thank you all so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.